My name is Lauren Offield. I'm 32. 3 months ago, my parents split their estate 50-50 between me and my sister. Fair, right? Megan got the house. 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, appraised at $450,000. She got 2 cars. She got the investment portfolio, $200,000 in stocks and bonds. Total, roughly $700,000. I got 200 acres of dirt in rural West Texas. Land that hadn't been farmed in 20 years. Appraised surface value, $15,200. My mother looked me in the eye and called it equal. The whole family called it the land. Like it was a joke. Like I was the punchline. I almost sold it. $15,000, cash. Quick close. My brother-in-law even found the buyer. I had the pen in my hand. But here's what none of them knew. What a geologist standing on my porch one Tuesday morning was about to change forever. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is the place where real family stories unfold. The kind that make you hold your breath and feel everything. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. I should back up. I'm a civil engineer for the county government in San Antonio. I design drainage systems, bridge reinforcements, road surveys. I make $67,000 a year. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment off Wurzbach Road with a 10-year-old Honda Civic in the parking lot. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. Full scholarship to Texas A&M Engineering. I left Cooperton, Texas the summer I turned 18. Population 4,000, 1 gas station, 1 church that mattered. My dad, Gerald, worked 31 years as a railroad inspector. My mom, Diane, stayed home. My sister Megan is 4 years older. She married Kyle Pearson at 22, had 2 kids, Aiden, now 6, and Sophie 4, and settled 3 miles from the house she grew up in. In my family, staying was loyalty, leaving was ambition, and ambition was a 4-letter word. I chose engineering. Megan chose proximity. My mother rewarded the one who stayed. Here's something nobody talked about. For 6 years after college, I sent $400 a month back home. Direct deposit into the family account. Groceries, electric bills, Dad's prescriptions when his insurance gaps hit. $400 a month on a junior engineer's salary. $28,800 total. Mom never told Megan. She never mentioned it at Thanksgiving. She never said thank you. That money just disappeared into the account like I'd never sent it. And when Dad got sick, really sick, Mom told the relatives, I couldn't be bothered to help. I loved my dad. He was a quiet man who noticed things other people walked right past, and he noticed me. But none of that mattered on the day they read his will. Dad died on a Tuesday in March. ALS, 14 months from diagnosis to the end. The last 8 months, he couldn't speak clearly. The last 4, he couldn't speak at all. I drove to Cooperton every other weekend those final months, 4 hours each way, 8 hours of highway for a visit where I held his hand and read to him from the Farmer's Almanac because it made him smile. I burned through vacation days. I burned through savings. I never complained. At the funeral, Megan sat in the front row next to Mom. I sat 2 rows back, next to Aunt Carol, Dad's younger sister. Nobody asked me to speak. The pastor called Dad a family man, devoted to his wife and daughter Megan. Singular. Daughter. I let it go. 6 weeks later, we gathered at Mr. Brewer's office for the reading of the will. Small room, wood paneling, ceiling fan ticking overhead. Mr. Brewer was 70, had been the family lawyer since before I was born. He had a manila folder and a glass of water. Present. Mom, Megan, Kyle, me, Mr. Brewer, and Aunt Carol, who drove in from Abilene. Kyle leaned over to Megan as we sat down. He whispered it loud enough for me to hear. This should be quick, not like there's much to split. I folded my hands in my lap. Mr. Brewer opened the folder. He read for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. The ceiling fan ticked. Mom sat perfectly straight. Megan stared at the desk. And in those 2 minutes, I understood exactly where I stood in my own family. To Megan Offield Pearson, Mr. Brewer read, adjusting his glasses. The family residence at 412 Pecan Lane, Cooperton, Texas. Appraised value $450,000. 2 vehicles, a 2019 Ford F-150 and a 2021 Buick Enclave. Investment portfolio held at Schwab, current balance approximately $200,000. He paused, took a sip of water. To Lauren Offield. 200 acres, McCully County, Texas. Parcel 9, surface and mineral rights. No existing structures or improvements. County appraised value, $15,200. The ceiling fan ticked. I looked at the number, 15,200. I looked at Megan's column, 700,000. I looked back at mine, 50-50. Megan didn't look at me. Kyle pressed his lips together, trying not to smile, and failing. Mom sat straight-backed, hands folded, face perfectly still, like she'd rehearsed this moment. Mr. Brewer reached across the desk and handed me an envelope. Old, manila, the corners soft with age. On the front, in my father's handwriting, the careful block letters I'd known my whole life. Parcel 9, McCully Company. I held it. The paper was warm from sitting in the folder. The ink was faded blue. Dad had written my name once, small, in the bottom corner. Just Lauren. No last name, no instructions. Just my name. Aunt Carol looked at me from across the table. She shook her head. A small movement, just once. The only person in that room who knew this was wrong. I held that envelope with my father's handwriting and I thought, this is what I'm worth to them. $15,000 and 200 acres of silence. We filed out of Mr. Brewer's office into the hallway. Fake fern in the corner. Water-stained ceiling tiles. The air smelled like old carpet and toner. I stopped my mother before she reached the door. You really think this is fair? Mom turned. She had her purse over one arm, her car keys already in her hand. She looked at me the way she looked at a telemarketer. Polite, distant, already done. Your father wanted you to have the land. It was special to him. He bought it himself at auction. The land is worth $15,000, Mom. Megan got $700,000. She didn't blink. Dirt is dirt, Lauren. You got your half. She said it like she was reading a grocery list. No anger, no guilt. Just a fact, delivered and dismissed. Then she kept going. Megan stayed. Megan took care of this family. Megan has children. You have your career. She said career, the way some people say infection. I looked past her. Megan stood by the exit, keys in hand, eyes on the floor. She heard every word. She said nothing. Kyle held the door open for Mom. He gave me a look, something between pity and amusement. Like I'd lost a contest I should have known was rigged. I stood in that hallway with the manila envelope against my chest. My father's handwriting, my name in faded ink, and the sound of my mother's heels clicking away down the tile. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it. And I drove 4 hours back to San Antonio with my father's handwriting on my lap. That should have been the end of it. I should have sold the land and moved on. And I almost did. 2 weeks later, Kyle called. Hey, Lauren, listen. I know a guy who'll take the land off your hands. 15 grand, cash, quick close, no hassle. His voice had that real estate smoothness. Kyle had been a senior agent at Pearson Realty before the market dipped, and they bumped him down. He still talked like he was doing you a favor while reaching for your wallet. Property tax alone is going to eat you alive out there, he said. I checked later. Property tax on 200 acres of unimproved land in McCully County, $182 a year. Kyle had inflated it by a factor of 10. His buyer was a guy named Randy Schaefer, Kyle's golf buddy. I didn't know this yet, but I'd learn it soon enough. Then Megan called. Separate call, same script. Just sell it, Lauren. It's not worth the headache. Move on. You left. I stayed. That's the math. There it was again. Mom's arithmetic. Loyalty measured in zip codes. I sat on my couch that night with Kyle's purchase agreement in my hands. One page, simple language. $15,000 for 200 acres. I picked up the pen. Then I looked at the kitchen table. The manila envelope was sitting there, propped against the salt shaker. Dad's handwriting. My name. Parcel 9, McCully Company. I put the pen down. I wasn't ready to let go of the last thing my father gave me, not until I'd seen it. Not until I'd stood on it and felt whatever he wanted me to feel. I folded Kyle's contract and put it in a drawer, and I booked a Friday off work. The drive from San Antonio to McCully County took 5 hours, west on I-10 past Sonora, then north on 2-lane blacktop through country so flat you could see the curve of the earth. No billboards, no cell signal for the last 40 minutes. I found the parcel markers, orange-capped stakes in dry ground, 200 acres of mesquite, creosote bush, and caliche. No fence, no mailbox. Just land stretching in every direction under a sky so wide it hurt. I walked the property for an hour. The ground crunched under my boots. There was an old windmill near the northeast corner. Broken blade, rusted pump, and about 200 yards south of that, an equipment shed. Corrugated tin, half the roof missing, padlock so rusted it crumbled when I twisted it. Inside, Dad's things. A folding chair, a dented toolbox, a plastic crate full of papers, yellowed and curling at the edges. And underneath the crate, a cardboard box with Gerald written on the side in Mom's handwriting. I didn't open it. Not then. I just stood there and looked. Then I walked back outside and stood in the middle of 200 acres of nothing, wind and dust and silence. As an engineer, I noticed things. The soil color changed near the arroyo, a dry creek bed cutting across the south end, exposed rock, dark shale, an unusual layering pattern I'd seen in geological textbooks but never in person. I took 3 photos with my phone. The land was ugly, it was dry, it was silent. But standing there, I felt something I hadn't felt since the funeral. Like my dad was trying to tell me something I wasn't smart enough to hear yet. 2 weeks later, someone else noticed the same thing I did. Kyle called again the following Wednesday. Randy's offer expires Friday, take it or leave it. His voice was tighter now, impatient. I sat at my kitchen table that night with my laptop open. McCully County property records, public access. I pulled up Parcel 9, surface value, $15,200. Nothing surprising. But then I read the deed language, the actual words, not Kyle's summary. There it was, in legal boilerplate I'd almost skipped over, including all mineral rights, royalties, and subsurface interests hereby conveyed in full. Mineral rights. I knew the term. Any engineer in Texas knows the term. Surface rights and mineral rights are separate estates. You can own the ground someone walks on and own nothing underneath it. Or the reverse. In the Permian Basin, mineral acres sell for $15,000 to $25,000 each. Per acre, not per parcel. I'd almost signed away 200 mineral acres for the price of a used Camry. I closed the laptop, opened it again, ran the numbers once more. Then I stared at Kyle's unsigned contract sitting next to the salt shaker. Friday came. I didn't call Kyle back. Monday came. I didn't answer Megan's text. I was still calculating. Then, on a Tuesday morning, 10:47 a.m., I remember the clock on the microwave. My doorbell rang. A man in a dusty white F250 was standing on my porch. Sunburned arms, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He had a geological survey map rolled under one arm and a business card that said, Dr. Tom Harlan, Consulting Geologist, Permian Energy Partners. He said 5 words that changed everything. I want to pause here for a second, because this is the moment where my whole life split into before and after. The timeline where I signed Kyle's contract and walked away with $15,000, and the one where I opened my front door. If you've ever been pressured to give up something that was yours, something everyone told you was worthless, stay with me. Hit subscribe right now, because what happened next is the reason I'm telling you this story. "Ma'am, are you the owner of Parcel 9, McCully County?" I nodded. He handed me his card. Tom Harlan was 55, leathery, and direct. He didn't do small talk. He told me he was a geologist and landman for an independent energy company. They were surveying the entire McCully County corridor because new horizontal drilling data had confirmed the extension of a productive oil-bearing formation farther east than anyone had mapped before. "We've leased mineral rights from 4 adjacent landowners already," he said. "Your parcel sits on the eastern edge of what we think is a very promising zone." I leaned against my doorframe. "Promising how?" "I can't tell you what's under there until we survey, but the geology is interesting, and I don't knock on doors for dirt." He wasn't selling. He wasn't promising. He was just stating facts the way engineers do. Measured, specific, honest. "What would a survey cost me?" I asked. "Nothing. The company pays. We just need written permission to test. Core samples, seismic readings. Takes about 3 weeks. No obligation." I signed the consent form on my kitchen counter. He rolled up his map and paused at the door. "Your dad bought this parcel at a railroad land auction back in 2001, didn't he?" "How did you know that?" "County records. Smart purchase. Most folks skipped it because there's no shallow water table. Useless for farming or ranching. But that dry formation?" He tapped the rolled map. "That's exactly what we look for." I watched his truck pull away. Dust settled on the parking lot. I stood there holding his business card and thinking about my father. A railroad inspector. A man who noticed things other people walked right past. A man who bought 200 acres of nothing for $12,000 in 2001. That night, I did what any engineer would do. I went to work. Texas Railroad Commission website. Production data for McCully County. 3 new drilling permits issued in the last 18 months, all within an 8-mile radius of my parcel. Reported production, 200 to 400 barrels per day from the Wolfcamp Formation. Horizontal wells, multi-stage fracking. The technology that had turned worthless West Texas acreage into the most productive oil region in the Western Hemisphere. I pulled up geological survey maps, cross-referenced formation depths, compared core sample data from the adjacent permits with the topography I'd photographed on my visit. The exposed shale I'd noticed at the arroyo, the unusual layering, it matched. I opened a spreadsheet. Conservative estimate, 200 net mineral acres at $15,000 to $20,000 per acre. That was $3 to $4 million in mineral rights value alone. If the formation proved productive, monthly royalties could run $8,000 to $12,000 every month for years. I sat at my kitchen table at midnight, the same table where Kyle's unsigned contract was still sitting in the drawer. $15,000? Cash? Quick close? $3 million versus $15,000. I closed the laptop. I opened it. I ran the numbers a third time because I'm an engineer, and that's what we do. We check. The numbers held. 3 weeks ago, my mother told me I got my half. Dirt is dirt. $700,000 for the daughter who stayed. $15,000 for the daughter who left. But numbers don't lie. And dirt isn't always just dirt. I needed to go back to McCully County. I needed to go back to that shed. Because somewhere in a cardboard box marked Gerald, my father had left something else. I drove out the following Saturday. 5 hours. Same flat highway. Same silence past the last cell tower. This time, the land looked different. Dr. Harlan's survey team was already set up on the south end. A white trailer, 2 trucks, cables running across the dirt. A man in a hard hat waved as I drove past. They were taking core samples. 3 weeks to results. I parked near the equipment shed. The door was still open from my last visit. Morning sun cut across the floor, lighting up the dust I'd kicked up 2 weeks ago. The plastic crate, the papers. I'd skimmed them last time. Now I went through each one. Dad's land auction receipt from 2001. $12,000, paid in full, cash. A county plat map from the early 2000s. Tax receipts. A letter from the county assessor. Then I opened the cardboard box underneath. More papers. Old insurance documents. a faded photo of Dad standing next to a fence post, squinting into the sun. And at the very bottom, wrapped in a plastic grocery bag to keep out the moisture, a notebook. Brown leather cover, cracked at the spine, corners worn soft. I opened it. My father's handwriting. Block letters, blue ink. The first page, Macaulay parcel notes. And underneath that, in smaller letters, for Lauren, when the time comes. I sat down on the folding chair. Dust puffed up around me. The shed smelled like old motor oil and dry wood and thyme. He wrote my name. Not Megan's, not Mom's. Mine. I sat on that dusty folding chair and read every page, and when I finished, I understood why my mother gave me the land. She didn't know what she was giving away. Dr. Harlan called 3 days later. I need to talk to you in person, not on the phone. We met at a diner in Briarfield, the closest town to the parcel, population 1,200. Formica tables, coffee that tasted like it had been on the burner since dawn. He unrolled a map across the table. Pencil marks, cross-hatched zones, color-coded overlays. He pointed to a shaded rectangle. That's your 200 acres. The shading was the same color as the productive zone to the west, the same formation, the same depth profile. We completed the preliminary assessment yesterday, he said. I can't guarantee production until we drill a test well, but the indicators are strong. Seismic data is consistent with the Wolfcamp play. Core samples show organic rich shale at 2,200 feet. He leaned back and looked at me over his reading glasses. Don't sell this land. Not for 15,000. Not for 50,000. He reached into his bag and set something on the table between our coffee cups. A small glass jar, sealed with a metal lid. Inside, reddish-brown soil. Fine-grained. Dense. This is what's on top, he said. What's underneath could change your life. I picked up the jar. It was lighter than I expected. You need a mineral rights attorney, he said. Before you talk to anyone. Before you sign anything. You understand? I nodded. And Lauren, don't tell your family. Not yet. Get the legal side locked down first. I've seen too many inheritance fights blow up because people talked before they lawyered up. I drove home with the soil sample on my passenger seat, next to the manila envelope. 2 objects, 2 pieces of evidence. One from a stranger who knocked on my door. One from a father who'd known all along. I called 3 mineral rights firms in Midland the next morning. 2 were booked solid. Oil boom problems. The third picked up on the second ring. Marjorie Webb. 20 years in oil and gas law, specializing in inheritance, royalty disputes, and lease negotiation. Her office was in a converted bungalow off Wall Street in Midland, Texas. She had a framed degree from UT Law, a cactus on her windowsill, and a handshake that meant business. I brought everything. The deed, the survey results, the soil sample jar, and the field journal. Marjorie read the deed twice. Then she looked up. Your deed says surface and mineral. You own the whole estate, Lauren. Every molecule under that dirt. She explained what I'd already suspected. In Texas, mineral rights get severed from surface rights constantly, passed down, sold off, split across generations until a single well might have 40 partial owners. But my father bought the full parcel at a railroad auction in 2001, unsevered, complete. Nobody had touched the mineral estate since the original land patent. Whoever told your family this was worth 15,000 either didn't know or didn't care, she said. Then she opened the journal, read the entries, closed it, looked at me. Who was trying to buy the land? My brother-in-law's friend, a guy named Randy Schaefer. She wrote the name down. Get me his full name and any correspondence. I want to check the county recorder's filings. I drove back to San Antonio that afternoon. The soil sample jar sat on my dashboard. The journal sat in my bag. And for the first time in my life, I had information my family didn't. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I'd read the journal in the shed. Quick, emotional, dusty. Now I read it again at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a highlighter. Slowly. The way you read something that matters. Dad started writing in 2017. The entries were sporadic. A few per year, never more than a paragraph. His handwriting was steady then. Clean block letters. June 2017. Talked to a geologist at the county fair. He said the Wolfcamp Formation might extend this far east, told me to hold the land. I told Diane. She said I was dreaming. September 2018. Hired a student from Texas Tech to do a basic soil sample. $200 out of my retirement fund. Results promising. Need a real survey but can't afford one right now. Maybe in a couple years. March 2019. The last entry. The handwriting was different. Shaky. Letters uneven. Some words trailing off. ALS had started its work. Told Diane about the land. She said sell it. I said no. This land is for Lauren. She'll know what to do with it. I put the highlighter down. He told Mom. In 2019, a year before the will was finalized, my father told my mother that the land might be valuable. That it should go to me. That I'd know what to do. And my mother signed the will. She took the executor role. She assigned the house, the cars, the investments to Megan, and she handed me the 200 acres of dirt, knowing her husband believed it had value and not caring enough to find out. She didn't give me the land because she thought I deserved the best. She gave it to me because she thought she was giving me nothing, a punishment dressed up as fairness. I touched the page. Dad's handwriting. The ink was fading. The paper was soft. But my name, for Lauren, was still clear. Still legible. Still there. Mom didn't give me dirt. She gave me exactly what Dad wanted me to have. She just didn't bother to find out what it was worth. 3 weeks later, Marjorie called. Sit down, she said. Or don't. Actually, I don't care if you're sitting. Just listen. The certified mineral appraiser had completed the full assessment, independent valuation, cross-referenced with production data from adjacent wells, lease comparables, and current market rates. 200 net mineral acres. Conservative estimate, $3.2 million. If leased for production, projected royalties, $8,000 to $12,000 per month. Ongoing, for decades. I was parked outside a Whataburger on Military Drive. I read the number on the email 3 times. 3.2 million. Then I scrolled down and read the second number. 15,200. The appraised surface value. Mom's version of half. The soil sample jar was still on my dashboard. I picked it up, turned it in the light. Dirt is dirt, Mom. Then Marjorie dropped the second piece. I ran the county recorder check on Randy Schaefer, your brother-in-law's buyer. And? He filed an inquiry on your deed transfer 2 weeks before Kyle ever called you with the offer, before you agreed to anything. He was checking the chain of title on your property before you even knew he existed. Silence. Someone tipped him off, Marjorie said. I can't prove it was Kyle, but the timeline speaks for itself. He was trying to buy 200 mineral acres from you for $15,000 through a straw buyer. I sat in my car for 20 minutes after we hung up. The engine was off. The windows were down. San Antonio traffic hummed around me, and I stared at a number on my phone that would have made my father cry. $3.2 million. For the land my family called worthless. I didn't call Kyle. Some things are better said in person. I met Marjorie at her office on a Thursday. Cactus on the windowsill. Legal pads stacked high. She had the documents laid out like a battlefield map. 3 decisions. 1. Keep the mineral rights. The deed was unambiguous. The will was executed properly. Diane signed as executor. No legal basis for contest. The mineral estate belonged to me. Fully. Completely. Inarguably. 2. Sign the mineral lease with Permian Energy Partners. Dr. Harlan's company offered $4,000 per acre as a signing bonus, plus a 25% royalty on production. Signing bonus alone, $800,000, deposited within 30 days of execution. 3. Do not voluntarily share any proceeds with Megan or Diane. Marjorie reviewed the file one more time. The will divided the estate. Your mother chose the allocation as executor. She signed. Megan accepted her portion without objection. The legal separation is clean. I sat with it. I had to. Am I being selfish? Am I being greedy? Is this the kind of person I am? Then I remembered. 15,000 versus 700,000. Dirt is dirt. You left. $400 a month for 6 years that nobody acknowledged. I wasn't being greedy. I was being what they'd always accused me of being, an engineer. I calculated, I verified, I decided, and I signed. Marjorie notarized the lease that afternoon. $800,000, incoming. Plus, monthly royalties once production began. The signing bonus hit my account on a Thursday. The county recorded the mineral lease on a Friday. Public record. Anyone could look it up. And on Monday morning, my phone started ringing. McCully County has 3,000 residents and no secrets. The county clerk recorded the lease agreement. Standard procedure, public filing. My name, the energy company's name, 200 acres, parcel 9. Within 48 hours, someone in the clerk's office told someone at the feed store, who told someone at the diner in Briarfield, who told someone who knew Randy Schaefer. Randy called Kyle. Kyle called Megan. Megan called Diane. By Monday afternoon, I had 14 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 9 texts. Megan. Lauren, call me now. This is about Dad's land. Kyle. We need to talk. ASAP. Don't do anything stupid. Diane. Megan told me what you did. We need a family meeting. I read them all. I put my phone on the counter. I made dinner. Pasta with olive oil and garlic. I ate slowly. Then I went to bed. I didn't respond to a single message. Tuesday, 6 more calls. Wednesday, 4. Each voicemail louder than the last. Kyle's shifted from friendly to threatening. You're gonna regret shutting us out, Lauren. Megan's oscillated between tears and accusations. I'm your sister. On Wednesday afternoon, my supervisor at work walked into my office. He had a pink message slip. He looked uncomfortable. Your mother called the main line, he said. She left a message. He handed me the slip. In the receptionist's handwriting. Your mother says you stole from the family. Please call her. My supervisor stood there, waiting. I folded the note and put it in my pocket. Family stuff, I said. It's handled. He nodded and left. I sat at my desk and stared at my monitor. The drainage plans for Route 16 blurred in front of me. By Wednesday night, I'd made a decision. If my mother wanted a public fight, I'd bring public truth. Friday night, 9:15 p.m., a knock on my apartment door. I checked the peephole. Megan and Kyle. She'd been crying. He looked like he'd been rehearsing. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Can we come in? Megan asked. You can talk from there. Megan's face crumpled. How could you do this to us? We're family, Lauren. Kyle stepped forward. That land should have been split differently. We're going to contest the will. Talk to my attorney. You think a lawyer scares me? I stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, voice level. The will gave me the land. Surface and mineral. Mom signed as executor. You all agreed it was just dirt. I'm keeping my dirt. Kyle's jaw tightened. We'll sue. Undue influence. Your dad was incapacitated when that will was signed. Dad was incapacitated when Mom chose what to give me. That's not my doing. Megan pivoted. The tears got thicker. Lauren, please. I'm drowning in debt. Kyle lost his position. The kids need aid in school. That's not my problem, Megan. You received $700,000 3 months ago. Where did it go? Silence. Megan stared at me. Kyle grabbed her elbow. Let's go. She's not going to listen. As they turned, Megan said over her shoulder, Mom's calling Pastor Davis. She's going to tell everyone what kind of sister you are. I closed the door, locked it, made chamomile tea, and waited. I want to stop here and say something. If you're watching this and you've ever had a family member show up at your door to guilt you into giving away something that's rightfully yours, you're not alone. This happens more than people talk about. And what my mother did next was the reason I finally stopped waiting and started walking. Keep watching. And if this story is hitting close to home, drop a comment below. I read every single one. My mother went to work. Not a job. A campaign. She called Pastor Davis at First Baptist. She called Aunt Carol. She called Uncle Frank in Houston. She called the Pattersons next door. She called Megan's friends from the school PTA. She built a narrative the way you build a fence. Post by post, plank by plank. Until there was a wall between me and everyone I'd ever known in Cooperton. Her version: Lauren found oil on the land and is keeping everything. She won't share a dime with her own sister. Megan, who stayed home, who raised her kids, who took care of Gerald when he was dying. Megan gets nothing. Lauren took and ran. The calls started coming. Cousin Derek. Heard you hit the lottery on that land, LOL. Megan said you won't even help with the kids' school tuition. Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived next door since before I was born. Your mother is crying every night, Lauren. Is this worth tearing your family apart? I didn't respond. To any of them. Silence was the only weapon I trusted. One person called who mattered. Aunt Carol. I know what Diane did at that reading, she said. I saw the numbers. You don't owe anyone an explanation. But be careful. Your mother is building a case in the court of public opinion. Then, on Thursday, Diane called me directly. Her voice was controlled, measured, the way it gets when she's already decided the outcome. Come to a family meeting. Sunday after church. At the fellowship hall. Pastor Davis will mediate. I paused. Fine. I'll be there. She hung up. Mom wanted witnesses. She wanted pressure. She wanted me to fold in front of everyone she'd primed. She didn't know I was bringing witnesses of my own. I called Marjorie Webb Friday morning. My mother organized a family meeting at the church. Sunday. She invited half the town. Marjorie was quiet for 3 seconds. I'll be there. Bring the original deed, the will, and the journal. Copies for distribution. I spent Saturday preparing. Not a speech. A file. An engineer's file. Tab 1, the will. Both pages. Mom's signature on the last page, witnessed and notarized. The exact allocation in black and white. Tab 2, the deed. Surface and mineral rights, highlighted in yellow. Tab 3, 3 pages from Dad's field journal, the 2017 entry, the 2018 entry, and the 2019 entry. This land is for Lauren. She'll know what to do with it. Photographed, time-stamped, originals preserved. Tab 4, the timeline. Kyle's offer, dated. Randy Schaefer's county recorder inquiry, dated 2 weeks before the offer. Side by side. No emotion in the folder, just documents. Just facts. Just the kind of evidence that doesn't need a raised voice to land. I read the journal one more time that night. The 2019 entry. Dad's handwriting. Shaking. ALS was taking his hands the way it had already taken his voice, but he held the pen long enough to write my name. I cried. The first time since the funeral. Not because I was scared. Because I missed him. Because he believed in me. And because on Sunday I was going to honor that belief in front of every person my mother had recruited against me. I dried my face, put the folder in my bag, pressed my good blouse. Navy, no wrinkles, professional. The kind of blouse you wear when you mean business but don't need to say it. Sunday was in 2 days. My mother was about to learn the difference between public shame and public truth. Saturday was a long day. My phone buzzed with texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousin Derek again. Just give Megan something, Lauren. She's got kids. An old neighbor, Mr. Winters. Your daddy wouldn't want this. A woman from the church prayer chain whose name I barely remembered. Praying for your heart, sweetie. They'd all heard Diane's version, the edited cut, the one where I was the villain and Megan was the martyr, and 700,000 versus 15,000 was somehow beside the point. Megan posted on Facebook that afternoon. No names, but everyone in Cooperton knew exactly who she meant. When family turns their back on you, all you can do is pray. Some people forget where they came from. 47 sympathetic comments, heart emojis. Stay strong, girl. God sees everything. Kyle posted on a local real estate forum something about watching people get swindled by oil companies and how some folks don't know what they're sitting on. A sideways shot, Plausible deniability. I saw all of it. Every post, every comment, every prayer chain text. I sat on my couch and felt the weight of a whole town leaning on me. The pressure was designed to crack me before Sunday. Show up softened. Show up apologetic. Write a check and earn back my place. I opened my bag. Looked at the folder. Navy blue. Tabbed. Organized. Everyone in Cooperton had heard my mother's version. On Sunday they were going to hear mine. Not because I wanted revenge, because the truth was the only thing I had left that they couldn't twist. Saturday night, 10:14 p.m. One text. Aunt Carol, I'll be there tomorrow. Front row, you're not alone. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and went to bed. The drive to Cooperton took 4 hours. I left at 6:30. Black coffee in the cup holder. Folder in my bag. The manila envelope in the glove compartment. I arrived at 11:15. Church service was just letting out. People in their Sunday clothes, shaking Pastor Davis's hand at the door, heading to their cars or drifting toward the fellowship hall next door. I parked across the street and watched. Cars I recognized. Mom's Buick Enclave, the one that used to be Dad's. Kyle's silver Dodge Ram. Pastor Davis's blue Camry. And 6 or 7 others. Mom had invited an audience. 15 people, maybe more, filing into the fellowship hall with coffee cups and righteous expressions. My phone buzzed. Marjorie Webb. Pulling in now. Gray Lexus. I watched Marjorie park 2 spots down. She stepped out in a dark blazer, leather briefcase, flat expression. She looked like a woman who'd done this before. We walked in together. The fellowship hall was exactly as I remembered it from potlucks and vacation Bible school. Folding chairs arranged in a half circle, a long table with a coffee urn and styrofoam cups, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The carpet smelled like dust and old hymnal pages. Diane sat front center, posture perfect. Megan beside her, tissue in hand, eyes already red. Kyle stood to the side, arms crossed, jaw set. Pastor Davis stood near the podium, Bible in hand, looking like he wished he were anywhere else. 15 faces turned toward me. Diane saw Marjorie. Her expression shifted. A flicker, fast. But I caught it. Who is this? My attorney. Kyle stepped forward. You brought a lawyer to a family meeting? You brought 15 people to pressure me. I brought one person to protect me. Pastor Davis cleared his throat. Let's all sit down. Mom stood up. She had notes. A half sheet of paper folded once, held in both hands. I recognized the gesture. The same way she'd held her eulogy at Dad's funeral. Rehearsed. Controlled. Thank you all for coming, she said. Her voice trembled, practiced, not genuine. This is difficult. You all know our family. You knew Gerald. You know what kind of man he was. She looked around the room. Mrs. Patterson nodded. Uncle Frank looked at his shoes. Gerald and I built this family together. When he passed, we split the estate fairly. Both girls got their share, but now Lauren. Her voice cracked on my name. Lauren found something valuable on the land, and she's keeping all of it. After everything this family sacrificed. She dabbed her eye. I raised both my girls the same. I loved them the same. But Lauren left. She chose her career over this family. Megan stayed. Megan sat with Gerald in that hospital room. Megan bathed him, fed him, held his hand. Megan was crying openly now. I just want what's fair, Lauren. For my kids. Aiden and Sophie didn't do anything wrong. Kyle jumped in. We've talked to a lawyer. The estate should be reevaluated. Gerald was incapacitated when the will was drafted. There's a case for undue influence. Murmurs in the room. Some heads nodding. Mrs. Patterson reached over and squeezed Diane's hand. Mr. Winters shook his head in my direction. The jury was primed. Megan looked at me. You left. I stayed. That's the math, Lauren. Mom finished. The room was quiet. 15 pairs of eyes on me, waiting for me to fold, to apologize, to write a check, and make this whole uncomfortable thing go away. I opened my folder. Before I could speak, Mom added something. Her notes were down. Her hands were shaking. This part wasn't rehearsed. Lauren, you... She stopped, swallowed. You remind me so much of your grandmother, Gerald's mother. The room went still. She always thought I wasn't good enough. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, she'd look at me across the table like I was something Gerald settled for. Diane's voice was small, raw. I spent 20 years trying to prove I belonged in this family, and when she died, I thought it would stop. But then you're just like her. The way you talk, the way you leave, the way you look at me like I'm failing. A long pause. I didn't want to lose both of you. I thought if I kept Megan close, at least someone would stay. The room softened. I saw it. Mrs. Patterson's hand on Mom's shoulder. Uncle Frank's eyes going wet. Sympathy shifting toward Diane like a tide. And I felt it too. For 3 seconds, I felt it. Her mother-in-law had been cruel to her. That wound was real. That pain was real. But pain doesn't come with a permission slip. Being hurt by Gerald's mother didn't give her the right to choose which daughter got $700,000 and which got $15,000. It didn't entitle her to lie about the land. It didn't make dirt is dirt an act of love. I felt sorry for her. For about 3 seconds. Then I remembered the number. I opened my folder. I stood. Folder in my hands. I didn't walk to the podium. I just stood where I was. 5 feet from my mother. I'm not going to make a speech, I said. I'm going to read. I pulled the first page. The will. To Megan Offield Pearson, the family residence at 412 Pecan Lane, Cooperton, appraised at $450,000, 2 vehicles, investment portfolio, approximately $200,000. I looked at the room. Total, approximately $700,000. Pause. To Lauren Offield, 200 acres, McCully County, surface and mineral rights, appraised surface value, $15,200. I held the page up. My mother called this 50-50, 700,000 to 15,000. Does anyone in this room want to do that math? No one spoke. Mrs. Patterson's hand slipped off Diane's shoulder. I pulled the second page. The deed. This deed, which my father wrote my name on, says surface and mineral rights. When Mom signed as executor, she conveyed everything under that land to me. She just didn't think it was worth anything. I set the deed on the table. I turned to Kyle. Kyle, your friend Randy Schaefer filed a title inquiry at the McCully County Recorder's office 2 weeks before you ever called me with the $15,000 offer. I pulled the 4th tab. The timeline. Dates highlighted. You were checking the chain of title on my property before I agreed to sell. Before I even knew you had a buyer. Kyle's face went red. His mouth opened. That's not... Marjorie stood beside me. Calm. Briefcase open. I have the county records right here if anyone would like to verify the dates. The room was very quiet. The coffee urn gurgled. The fluorescent lights buzzed. 15 faces, all looking somewhere they hadn't expected to look. I didn't come here to yell, I said. I didn't come to punish. I came to read you the same documents my mother signed. I reached into my bag and pulled out the journal. Brown leather, cracked spine. The room could see how old it was. This is my father's journal, I said. I found it in the equipment shed on the land, in a box marked with his name. I opened to the page I'd marked. My hands were steady. March 2019, my father's handwriting. I read it aloud, slowly, the way you read something sacred. Told Diane about the land. She said sell it. I said no. This land is for Lauren. She'll know what to do with it. The room gasped. A collective inhale, the kind you feel in your chest. Uncle Frank looked at Diane. Mrs. Patterson pulled her hand back entirely. Pastor Davis set his Bible down. I looked at my mother. Dad told you, Mom. A year before the will was finalized, he told you the land might be valuable, and you gave it to me anyway, because you thought it was worthless. You thought you were punishing me. I held the journal up. You said dirt is dirt, Lauren. You were wrong. That dirt was everything. Diane's face went white. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. That journal, Gerald was confused. He had ALS. He wrote all kinds of things. Marjorie spoke, measured, professional. The entries begin in 2017 and end in early 2019. They predate the advanced stages of Mr. Offield's illness by over a year. His handwriting is consistent and coherent throughout. Then Aunt Carol stood up. Front row, just like she'd promised. I was there when Gerald talked about that land, she said. Clear as day, sitting on his back porch in October 2018. He told me, Carol, that land is Lauren's. Promise me. I promised. She sat down. The room shifted on its axis. The mask came off. Diane's grief act collapsed like a card table. Her jaw clenched, her hands balled into fists on her thighs, and her voice, the measured, martyred, mother-of-the-year voice, cracked into something hard and jagged. You ungrateful. She stood up. The folding chair scraped the floor. I raised you. I fed you. I kept this family together while Gerald was dying. And you come here with a lawyer and embarrass me? In my own church? Kyle stepped in. Chest puffed. This is garbage. We're contesting the will. Undue influence. Gerald couldn't hold a pen, let alone make decisions. Marjorie didn't flinch. The will was prepared by Mr. Brewer, executed with witnesses, and signed by Mrs. Offield as executor with full legal capacity. There are no grounds for contest. Any attempt will be met with a countersuit for tortious interference with inheritance. Kyle's mouth snapped shut. Megan was shaking, tears and mascara streaming. Lauren, please. I'm begging you. My kids. We're about to lose the house. I can't. You're not losing the house, I said. You received $700,000, Megan. I received $15,000 in surface value, and now I'm keeping what's mine. Diane took one more shot. Her voice shook, not with sadness, but with fury. Your father would be ashamed of you. I looked at her, steady, quiet. The louder she got, the lower I went. Dad wrote my name in that journal, Mom. Not yours. Not Megan's. Mine. He trusted me with this. I think he'd be proud. The room heard it. Every person in that fellowship hall heard the difference between a woman screaming and a woman standing. I don't owe you my inheritance. I don't owe you an apology. And I don't owe you my silence anymore. I closed the folder. I put the journal back in my bag. I looked at the room, the folding chairs, the styrofoam cups, the fluorescent lights, the faces. Some looked stunned. Some looked ashamed. Mrs. Patterson was staring at the floor. Uncle Frank was rubbing his forehead. Pastor Davis hadn't touched his Bible since the journal came out. I came here today because my mother asked, I said. I've said what I needed to say. The documents are public record. Anyone who wants to verify can visit the McCully County Clerk's office. I turned to my mother. She was still standing. Her fists were still clenched, but her eyes were different now. Wet, unfocused, caught. Mom, I loved you. I love this family. But love doesn't mean I accept being cheated. I know what Dad wanted, and I'm going to honor it. Then I looked at Megan. You said, you left. That's the math. Here's my math. I left. I worked. I earned my degree. I sent $400 a month to this family for 6 years. And the one thing you gave me turned out to be worth more than everything you kept. I picked up my bag. Marjorie followed. As I passed Aunt Carol, she squeezed my hand. Firm, quick, real. I walked out of that fellowship hall. The fluorescent lights buzzed behind me. The door was the heavy kind. Metal frame, hydraulic arm. It closed slowly. I could hear my mother crying. The real kind this time. I kept walking. The manila envelope was on my passenger seat. Dad's handwriting. Parcel 9, McCully Company. I put my hand on it, started the engine, and drove home. Kyle consulted a lawyer the following week. The lawyer told him what Marjorie had already said. No grounds. The will was valid. The deed was clean. My mineral rights were mine. He dropped it. Megan called once, 10 days after the meeting. Her voice was different, hollow, tired, stripped of performance. "I'm sorry about the math comment," she said. I let the silence sit. Then, "Yeah, you should be." We stayed on the line for another 30 seconds. Neither of us spoke. Then she hung up. No promises, no reconciliation, no hallmark ending. Just two sisters on opposite sides of a line neither of us drew. Mom didn't call. Not that week. Not the next. Not the month after. Aunt Carol told me Diane left First Baptist and started attending a church in the next town over. She didn't talk about the meeting. She didn't talk about the land. She didn't talk about me. I signed the mineral lease the following month. The first royalty check arrived in August. $9,200. I deposited it into savings. No new car. No social media post. No gloating. Aunt Carol drove down to San Antonio for dinner. We sat at a Mexican restaurant on Broadway and split a plate of enchiladas. "Your dad would be doing a little dance right now," she said, shaking hot sauce onto her plate, "that awful two-step he used to do in the kitchen." I laughed. The first real laugh since March. I put in my notice at the county 2 weeks later. Not out of spite, out of possibility. I started a consulting firm. Small civil engineering projects for rural Texas communities, water systems, road surveys, bridge assessments. The mineral income funded it, and I named it after the land. Parcel 9 Engineering. 6 months later, I stood on my land again. Same flat ground, same mesquite, same wind. But half a mile west, a drilling rig rose against the sky, 70 feet of steel and purpose. The first production well on Parcel 9, pumping 320 barrels a day. I'd fixed the old windmill. Not because it pumped water. The well was dry. I fixed it because Dad bought it with the land, and some things are worth keeping just because someone you loved thought they mattered. The soil sample jar sat on the bookshelf in my new office. Next to it, Dad's field journal, wrapped in acid-free paper. And next to that, a framed check stub. The first royalty payment. $9,200. Not the biggest number in the world, but the first honest one. I don't hate my mother. I don't hate Megan. But I stopped pretending they loved me the way I needed to be loved, and that's enough. Some people show you your worth by trying to take it away. The trick is not letting them. My door is open. But the deed stays in my name. The land my family threw away became the ground I built my life on, and the lesson was never about oil or money. It was about knowing that what others dismiss as dirt might be the most valuable thing you'll ever own. That's my story. 200 acres of dirt. One geologist, and a father who believed in me when no one else did. If this story reminded you of someone in your life, share it with them. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.